Wonderful. And with that, we will get started. So I will pass this off to my wonderful moderator, Lynette Buffington, who will kick off our session today. So with that, Lynette, take it away.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see so many folks in this webinar, and I think even some of our what I would call our usual suspects. I've seen some return attendees, so that's great to see you. We're really excited for this webinar and appreciate you joining us. Today marks 76 days until the first World Cup match in Seattle, and we're here to talk about transit planning as we ramp up for what is one of the most significant events in our region's history. And we have gone from abstract concepts around crowds and games and just in general the tournament, and now we're moving into stuff that is way more concrete and specific. And so this crew today will certainly deliver. Um, as part of our commitment to business readiness and resilience during this opportunity, the Chamber is proud to convene this series. We've been doing this for almost a year. June will be a year to help local businesses plan and prepare. We've been deeply engaged in the World Cup planning, serving as a statewide business liaison and working closely with various partners across all sectors to ensure our region is not only ready, but thriving, allowing us to showcase all the best Seattle and the region has to offer visitors and even to our own residents. This morning's session is a behind the scenes look at how our region is gearing up to move fans, residents, and visitors during the Seattle hosted World Cup matches. We're thrilled to be joined by this cross-cutting panel of agencies who will share what travel could look like on match days, how these organizations are coordinating across the region, and what tools and resources will help everyone navigate a busier than usual seminar. Listed in order of presenting here on your screen, we'll kick off with Mark Bandy, who's a project manager at Kimley-Horn. Then we'll hear from Annie Johnson, who is Mobility and Technology Manager at Washington State Department of Transportation, or WSDOT, as we call it. And then next, we have Marie Olson, Executive Director for Strategic Performance and Operations from Sound Transit. She is followed by Jonathan Rose, who's closing us out, is a project manager for major events at King County Metro. I'm sorry, our last person is Trevor Partap, who manages the temporary traffic control and special events teams within the Seattle Department of Transportation, and is one of the FIFA 2026 planning leads for the department. So everybody in transportation is on the call here to talk about World Cup. And so we're really excited to have them here and appreciate them spending their time with us. So Mark, you are first at bat, if we're just going to go with a baseball analogy and move from soccer to baseball. You are up, and thank you for coming here today.
Thanks, Lynette. Happy to be here. And good morning, everyone. As Lynette said, I'm a consultant at Kimley-Horn and been supporting the local organizing committee and its planning, and then working with my fine fellow panelists, plus a variety of other agencies throughout the region, from involving airports, other transit agencies, police departments, Washington State Ferries, and Annie, who's on the call from the DOT. So I just want you to know that you have a subset here, but there's been a lot of coordination going on. I'm going to start off with setting some, kind of talking about some of our high level mobility goals as we've gone into this collective planning. So, first and foremost, similar to the event itself, we want to create a safe, inclusive, and welcoming atmosphere and environment for those that are going to come visit our region, but also, obviously, all of us who live here and work and do our daily activities. We still want those to occur in their normal course of business, but while also giving us the opportunity to participate in this event. We want to make sure through mobility that we're helping support broadening the benefit to state and area businesses, particularly small neighborhood businesses, limiting traffic impacts, of course, to the shortest extent possible, the shortest period possible, and maintaining our community mobility and access, particularly to essential services. And summing that all up, that really means maximizing the use of public transit. We're kind of really looking at this thematically is like how do we showcase our city, our region, and our state throughout this planning effort from a mobility perspective. Can we go to the next slide? So let's put that into some numbers at a top level. So we talk about modes in the transportation world that in common parlance means riding transit or walking, biking, using rideshare, or of course personally owned vehicles still is a mode as well. What we're showing here from how stadium events have been occurring in terms of that split. That's what the BAU column is, business as usual. That's showing the proportion amongst public transit and those other modes that people have been going to Lumen Field events. It's been increasing over the year, the use of public transit, as certainly transit system has been expanding. And then you'll see in that middle column with the arrow pointing down on it, our aspirational goal of where we have been cementing our planning around getting to half of the attendees using public transit. So it's a aspirational goal, but we think is very, very readily achievable with the collective planning that we've been doing. And then you'll see in the active transportation and rideshare categories, also getting those to a higher level with people, staying downtown or coming into town, into the downtown area before the match, and then they're already down and using those modes to get to the stadium. So the upshot of that all is 80% non-privately owned vehicles. So that's really kind of been our target and the sort of the, as I said, the aspirational goal that's fundamental to all the planning we've been doing. We can go to the next slide. Briefly recapping, maybe you've seen this before, but here, just in case, here's our 6 matches and the dates and the times, the kickoff times of those matches. And you would have seen before that we do have one final team to determine. That's on the June 24th match. That is down to either Italy or Bosnia-Herzegovina, and that match is actually happening in about half an hour. It'll kick off. So later today, we will know what that final team is that's coming here on June 24th. So exciting last piece of the puzzle. We can go to the next slide. And then I'm going to wrap up in terms of my speaking points here. Is we've created this calendar. We've been having it in use for a while. It's what we call it for shorthand, an intensity calendar. It's meant to kind of convey, obviously on a calendar basis, where our matches are occurring, but also other important activities and events that are happening in and around the downtown stadium area. And so it's sort of indicating what's the level of busyness and activity from people in and around downtown to traveling on the different modes of transportation to thinking about it from a business perspective and an employer perspective of how to take advantage of all the people that are going to be around, because it won't just be on match days that we expect a higher number of people moving around. And so, as I said, we have our matches on here. We also show cruise schedules. So what's the number of cruises happening per day throughout the tournament period? We have Mariners home games shown on here. We have some other community events like the last day of public schools or commencements, Seafair on here. And then we also are showing the status of the Revive I-5 work, and Andy will talk about that in just a minute, but that's going to end during the match period here. And then the bottom of each day, you'll see a colored bar from gray to green, orange, and red, kind of reflecting what we think some of the busiest days are going to be. Clearly match days will, but you'll see in the time period from, say, June 24th through Pride weekend on the 28th, that just the combination of those events we think is just going to keep the downtown area really busy throughout those days. And so we hope this calendar is providing a good benefit to you all as you think about this, from what that means for you in the operation of your business and your daily lives. And with one last thing I'll touch on, teams that are playing here on those match days will typically arrive 1 to 3 days prior to the match. They will be staying in hotels that are in the downtown Seattle area. Practice for those teams will be at either the University of Washington or Seattle University. As team buses are moved from hotels to the stadiums, they will, of course, be escorted. So there may be a short-term traffic disruption if a team bus gets escorted through. And then, of course, on match days itself, that activity will continue to happen. And then on match days, we could see heads of state, other dignitaries coming in. And so as they, depending on their security level, may also have an escort moving them through from a security perspective. And so you could also see throughout the area some temporary short-term disruptions from that. And with that, I'm done, and we'll go on to Amy.
Thanks, Mark. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So as a statewide agency, we're looking at World Cup not just as a Seattle event, but as a statewide event. We expect up to 750,000 visitors coming to Seattle, or coming to our state for the World Cup. And we're really anticipating that they'll not just spend time in Seattle, but in other parts of our state as well. Exploring our national and state parks, experiencing the wonder of our state. The summer, to me, is the best time to be here in the Pacific Northwest. And of course, riding our iconic state ferries. And with matches both in Seattle and Vancouver, BC, we also anticipate significant travel along the I-5 corridor and across the US-Canada border. And as we have been doing our planning, we're also being really cognizant that there's a lot of folks who aren't soccer people and won't be attending World Cup matches or events. Those people will still need to live their daily lives, get to the work, stores, the doctor's office, go on their own summer vacations, and get to other events like Mariners games, concerts at the Gorge, and community fairs and festivals across the state. So while we talk here a lot about getting folks to and from World Cup, we're also trying to make sure that our regular riders and users can get where they need to go as well. Next slide. So how are we at WSDOT preparing for World Cup? We've implemented several coordination structures, both internally across our agency, as well as with our external partners, like the folks that are here with me today, as well as other state and local entities. We've also been working on creating our event action and communications plan. So how are we at WSDOT, how are our regions and modes working to keep people moving during World Cup? How are we communicating with the public about travel during the World Cup using our existing travel tools, social media, as well as amplifying messages from our partners? Clear roles and responsibilities, who's responsible for what during World Cup, what does that look like? How are we sharing information across our agency? As a statewide agency, there's a lot of folks to kind of keep in the loop, so just making sure we're all on the same page about how we're doing that and how that information is being gathered and shared with both internally as well as with our external partners. And then also looking at resource needs and sharing opportunities. This is something we do when we have big events. Things might be busy here in the Seattle area, but not as busy down in Vancouver. We have that ability to shift those resources as needed across our agency. And then really just making sure that our staff is prepared, doing trainings. And we just did a big exercise internally about our coordination for World Cup, really just making sure that we are prepared to handle this increase in travel that we expect to see during World Cup. Next slide, please. So one of the most frequent questions I get about World Cup is, what are you guys doing about construction and maintenance during the event? So we started talking about this topic back in mid-2024 with our regions to find a balance between our project delivery and maintenance needs and that increased, the expected increase in travel activity during World Cup. Summer's a really busy time for us at WSDOT. A lot of our construction and maintenance work requires warm, dry weather or has prescribed work windows to minimize the impact on fish and their habitats. We can't completely stop work during World Cup, but we really wanted to plan ahead and get language in our contracts about what types of works would or wouldn't be allowed during World Cup. And we really decided to focus our World Cup work restrictions on high impact closures and cross-state travel, while continuing to allow our crews to work under our typical overnight lane and ramp closures. So the definition of a high impact closure varies a little bit depending on where you are in the state, but generally it includes things like full roadway or full directional closures or the weekend long closures that we see a lot here in the Seattle area. You can see we have 3 levels of restrictions. The closer you are to the stadiums in Seattle, more restricted, longer duration, those restrictions are. So for highways closest to the stadium, those restrictions are in place for the duration of World Cup in Seattle. The next tier, that orange tier, is really about matches in Seattle. So when there's matches in Seattle, restrictions about high impact closures on those orange crowds. So thinking about people that are going to be coming perhaps from the other side of the state, or those that are trying to get not come to Seattle and get around. So that's why you see things like SR18 on there, as folks maybe want to head that way to get to I-90. And then also just on days when there's back-to-back matches up in Seattle and Vancouver, I think there's 3 of those during the World Cup, really focusing on trying to keep that I-5 corridor between Everett and the border clear as well. Next slide, please. So one of the bigger Seattle area projects that folks here tend to ask about is what's happening with Revive I-5 during World Cup. So as you may know, that is a really big project that's happening right now, repairing and preservation work on the Ship Canal Bridge. The Ship Canal Bridge is about 60 years old and hasn't seen a major rehabilitation project like this in about 40 years. That work started last summer and will continue through 2027. The vast majority of that work is happening using these 2-lane reductions like is in place right now, where 2 lanes of traffic are closed while crews do work to resurface there and 2 lanes are open. That's around the clock, and that one has been in place since January. We will pick up before World Cup, as Mark talked about, the weekend of June 5th through 8th. We will have a full closure of I-5 from I-90 to Northeast 45th Street to remove that work zone. That work zone will be out of the way for the duration of World Cup in Seattle. We're planning to come back out the weekend of July 10th through 13th for another one of those northbound closures to set up the work zone, and we'll be working on the other side in the right 2 lanes. And we anticipate wrapping up the northbound work late in 2026, and then we'll come back in 2027 to repair and resurface the southbound bridge deck. And that is the conclusion of my presentation. I'll hand it over to Marie.
Hi, everybody. I am Marie Olson. I am the Executive Director of essentially passenger experience at Sound Transit. Very excited to be here today. And I just looked up the countdown. It looks like we are 71 days away from the tournament. So we're getting there. Next slide, please. I'm going to go over Sound Transit's modal and service plans. Let's start with Link. You all may have heard just opened the Cross Lake connection on Saturday. I was out yesterday morning and this morning monitoring the 2-line and the 1-line at International District Station here, and we've got lots of excitement around it and already a good amount of passengers. So really excited for that. So for FIFA, we'll be doing 8-minute headways or 8-minute frequencies on all of our trains, both the 1-line and the 2-line for Link. Until 1 a.m. And so that's an all-day 8-minute frequency for all 6 match days. And what an 8-minute frequency means on each line is that where they meet, International District up to Linwood, is actually a 4-minute frequency. So you'll be seeing 4-minute trains every 4 minutes downtown Seattle. For Sounder, we're utilizing a mix of existing service, and we've got some special event trains for game days. Plus, you'll see longer consist size on the North Line. For Tacoma Link, we've got some additional service. We definitely are wanting to support the Sounder connection there down at Tacoma and support the Tacoma fan zone. We'll be providing a 12-minute frequency on game days and try to match Sounder schedule to ensure that smooth connection. And for ST Express Bus, extra buses for sure, pre-game and post-game on many of our key routes. We do expect some overcrowding around the stadium area, primarily on the east side buses and the south side buses. We'll also, during this time, we'll be piloting an overnight service on ST Express between airport and downtown Seattle. And that'll cover when Link is not in service. So that like 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. timeframe. And then for contingency, in the unfortunate event that we get a disruption on one of our rail lines, we are planning to bus bridge it, and we do have standby temporary charters that we'll have on hand. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is an overview of Sound Transit's passenger experience and communication plans. So when it comes to passenger experience, Sound Transit is very interested in working very hard on the various elements to ensure a clean and reliable ride. We'll be increasing cleaning throughout the system leading to the tournament, and we'll have staff standing by to clean and to respond to incidents as quickly as possible. We'll be deploying staff across our whole alignment, providing customer care and a lot of support navigating our system. We'll be deploying parking attendants at our key garages to direct passengers and to put out lot full signs should they fill up. We're also partnering closely with the local jurisdictions and ensuring micro-mobility options like bikes and scooters are in place to provide opportunities for people to leave devices at the stations and maximize space on the trains and buses. We're working to deploy innovative bathroom pilot also at a few locations on our system. And we did just go live with open payment. So at the Orca machines, this is for all the transit modes, you can now tap your phone or credit card and pay your fare. So that's exciting. We also will have an Orca multi-day pass as a pilot ahead of the World Cup. We're building and strengthening partnerships within the cities and local communities to ensure economic opportunities for when FIFA is here, and that those opportunities get distributed across the region. This is in direct response from feedback we've received of prior events in Seattle not leading with the regional benefits. So we heard you. For passenger communication and passenger messaging, we actually began a handful of weeks ago, and they will be constant throughout the tournament via our website, blogs, social media channels. So please stay connected with us. And we actually have a site, www.soundtransit.org / soccer tournament. I might throw that in the chat there. Okay, we're working to deploy accessible and multilingual communications to welcome all international crowds. And our wayfinding and signage strategies and deployment are closely aligned with regional partners to ensure a consistent, cohesive look and feel across the region. Next slide, please. So quick overview of the safety and security plans. We absolutely want to ensure a safe and secure ride for our passengers on the event days, and then during any of the fan zone activities, etc. So we have been, even I've been trained in a lot of this, anti-human trafficking refreshers, cybersecurity, etc. We're doing a number of exercises, tabletop exercises, etc. before the event. For the event itself, we will have increased security presence and coverage across the system, a big emphasis in the downtown Seattle area, and lots of crowd management and metering strategies that we actually got to try out with that Seahawks Super Bowl parade. We actually put the World Cup plan onto the Seahawks parade, and it worked really well. So excited about that. We are activating our emergency operations center throughout the tournament, and we will have liaisons at key other emergency operations centers across the region, including Seattle's EOC. We will upstaff our IT command room and have a cybersecurity support standby. And we will have fare engagement out in our alignment, checking fare and providing customer support. Okay, next slide. So access to the stadium. So key element that we're working with the local organizing committee and FIFA is around fan access to Seattle Stadium. And it will be all different types of it will be different than our typical events, where a lot of people kind of flood Stadium Station or International District Station. There will be no regular fan parking available, and regular fans will be funneled to the north end of the stadium to access the event. So given this, our element of communication and safety and security strategy of Link is disbursement of fans based on destination across the stations near Seattle Stadium, which we are calling our preferred station approach. So if you're coming from points north, we want you to get on and off at Pioneer Square Station. If you're coming from points south, get on and off at Stadium Station. If you're coming from the east, or if you need mobility assistance, you'll come right into Stadium Station. If you need assistance at Stadium, at the stadium, Seattle Stadium, then you get on and off at International District Station. Because we have a stadium station, and then we have Seattle Stadium. So let me see here. And then if you're traveling further within the downtown area, you'll use King County Metro World Cup shuttles and their regular bus service. So a lot of the strategies we're deploying is things that we've learned from the London and Paris Olympics and prior FIFA games, that really distribution of crowds across stations is key. And we will have a big communication emphasis pushed out prior to any event to support the messaging around this. Next slide, got some next steps. Basically, in the next couple of weeks leading up to the tournament, we'll be all hands on deck, and the region will continue to work closely with the LOC and the local partners to ensure we are ready. Our communications push will be frequent, and so stay engaged, please. We will plan on board briefings coming up in the next few months to our Sound Transit Board. And that concludes my section of the presentation, so I'll pass it over to Jonathan.
Hey everybody, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Can go ahead and go to the first slide. So I wanted to kick it off by grounding us in a little bit of context here before getting into the nitty-gritty of our planning and preparation. These are some simplified results of our rider, non-rider survey, which is administered 4 times every year. And it asks people why they are riding transit. And so just to jump to the key takeaway here, in 2019, pre-COVID, as you can probably imagine, the vast majority of people were using transit to get to and from work. And then we all kind of know what happened during COVID. And as COVID receded into memory and events started to come back online, we were allowed to see each other in person again. We noticed some really interesting and quite fundamental shifts in ridership patterns, namely that these 2 categories that you see on the screen, which we track, special events and fun social, had doubled in terms of the number of people citing those as why they were taking transit. And in the case of the fun/social category, as of 2024, it actually has surpassed commuter trips. And that trend has only continued throughout 2025. I do expect to see some reversion to the mean there as more of the region's major employers bring folks back to the office, King County included. I was surprised not to see that reflected actually in the 2025 data. We'll see how 2026 shakes out. But as of now, this trend is only continuing. And I just think this is important context as we head into what by many metrics, will be the biggest, highest impacting special event since the World's Fair of 1962 in this region's modern history. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And so I also wanted to just emphasize that World Cup is kind of a capstone project on a continuum of special events. And we're always recording after action and lessons learned and looking at how we can improve and trying new things for these major disruptions. We have our yearly special events, big ones being the Torchlight Parade, Pride Parade. But 2023 was also a banner year for special events. That's when we got Major League Baseball All-Star Week, Taylor Swift. And then New Year's 2024, we had the Winter Classic. Then we had Metallica, Beyonce, a bunch of other big concerts. And again, always trying new things, always recording those and absorbing lessons learned and kind of feeding those into the next event. And then, of course, the big one that happened this year was the Seahawks Victory Parade. And this was just fantastic timing as a test run for World Cup. To be clear, it's not an apples to apples comparison. There were differences. I do think it's notable that many of the differences actually indicate that the Seahawks parade was more challenging. So, for example, on the bus side for King County Metro, we lost the ability to use 4th Avenue entirely, not just as a north-south throughfare, but all of the east-west cross streets. So reroutes were extremely significant, and that presented a huge part of the disruption. But it was a massive confidence builder just in terms of our sheer ability to move a huge number of people. So combined daily boardings of King County Metro and Sound Transit totaled close to 560,000. And then to compare it to the 2014 Victory Parade, in that year with the same parade start time, King County Metro was not able to go back to regular route in 2014 until 9:30 p.m. that night. So the parade started at 11 a.m., but it took all the way until 9:30 to get everything back to regular route. Whereas for this year, we were able to return everything back to regular route at 5:04 p.m. So just our ability to, move massive numbers of people and clear those crowds has really gone up over the years. And it was fantastic to see that in person. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And so part of the reason why I think we were able to do that was the strong partnerships that you see evidenced here today and everything people did to prepare for that Seahawks event. I also just have to note that another difference, of course, with the Victory Parade is depending on when you start the clock, we had like 2 to 4 weeks to plan for that event. Whereas, we've been planning for World Cup for some 2 years. But another big part of our success, I think, for that event, and this will certainly come into play going into World Cup, is just our strong foundation. So before we even talk about all the services that we're adding, I just want to emphasize how fortunate we are to have our stadium, our main World Cup venue, just to the south of the downtown core in what is already a very transit-rich environment. And you can see all the different modalities here. I haven't taken the time to add up the hourly capacity of all of this service, but I know it's a lot. 32 bus routes, 3 light rail stations, streetcar, water taxi, and then the commuter rail in the form of the Sounder. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And so despite that, of course, we are adding a significant amount of service across all modalities. And so generally, we're thinking about this in terms of match days and non-match days. Match days, of course, are kind of the peak when we expect to see peak ridership, and we're going to need to bring everything we have to the table. On those 6 days, we will be operating a custom Metro Match Day shuttle that Marie mentioned, and I'm going to go into that a little bit more depth in the next slide. But just to keep giving an overview here, in addition to that, we're also adding trips, frequency capacity to existing routes to cover all the outlying areas, and including areas that are not currently directly served by rail. We're also adding additional capacity and frequency on access paratransit services, Metroflex on demand, water taxi sailings, and we are rolling out a new waterfront shuttle that will actually operate for the whole summer. So from late May to early August. So not just for World Cup, but we do expect it to be a very popular service with tourists and folks coming in on the sailings coming into the port there, the cruise ships. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And so this is a little bit more of an in-depth look at the Metro Match Day shuttle. You can see the routing there. This will, as the name suggests, only operate on those match days. It is designed as a high-frequency, high-capacity route to move large numbers of people very efficiently. And we have arranged with our partners here on this call to have a custom pickup drop-off location just to the west of Seattle Stadium on northbound 1st Avenue South. Some of you might have seen we did something similar for MLB All-Star in 2023, and again for Taylor Swift. We were kind of experimenting, dipping our toe in the water in those cases. In this case, it will be massively scaled up. So we're talking about a minimum of 35 60-foot buses that will be involved in this service, with the ability to transport over 2,800 people per hour. And because of our ability to pre-stage those buses on northbound 1st Avenue South to get ready for the egress operation when the match lets out, we are kind of thinking about this functionally as almost like an additional or a 4th light rail station that people can go to. And as Marie mentioned, we've been developing this in close coordination with Sound Transit and the messaging that Marie mentioned. So this service is going to be heavily messaged and marketed, and all the know before you go communications for folk as the kind of the premier option for folks who are already downtown to hop on this bus as they are going either to the stadium or to one of the fan celebrations. And then, of course, after the match, they can hop on this bus if they're going to continue enjoying everything that downtown has to offer. If they're going to the Ferris wheel or a restaurant or whatever it is, they can hop on this bus and hang out in downtown a little bit longer before they go home. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. And so these are all of our passenger experience initiatives. Marie mentioned kind of the headliners here, the big one being tap to pay or open loop. So you can now tap with your credit or debit card. Marie also mentioned the multi-day pass. This is a Orca product that would be good for 3 days. And we wanted to do this because obviously the open payment is highly relevant for all the international visitors who may not want to go through the trouble of procuring an Orca card. But we know that some percentage of those folks still want to pay in cash. So we wanted to offer a solution for those folks that would still kind of limit and streamline the number of times they have to interact with fares. So they can go and they can purchase one of these passes with cash, and then they're good for 3 days. We're also, of course, going to be doing a lot of enhancements for wayfinding and signage, especially around the stadium, and directing folks to that custom shuttle service I mentioned. We're also going to be having a lot of on-the-ground support at the fan celebration sites, the stadium, and across the region in our transit centers and park and rides. We call that street teaming. And then we have a number of promotional initiatives going, including in partnership with SDOT, the Flip Your Trip campaign, and a number of other exciting things that we'll be rolling out over the coming months, including a welcome video that is being filmed at SeaTac Airport. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. And last but not least, safety security. So, we have 220 third-party contracted security officers as pictured here, and we will be deploying a very high percentage of those folks across the locations that you see listed: 3rd Avenue, along the Metro Match Day shuttle stops, and near the fan celebration sites and other fan zones. We've been doing a lot of emergency response planning, countless numbers of tabletop exercises, live in-person exercises, participating in them, facilitating them, and there's many more of those to come. We're also rolling out a lot of additional training for frontline staff that will cover not just security, but also customer service, de-escalation, and even some crowd surge management information. And then just blocks, just a couple blocks to the east of the stadium, we actually have 3 bus spaces. And so we've been conducting a threat and vulnerability analysis. And based on the results of that analysis, we'll also be deploying some additional physical security measures to protect those facilities and all of the employees that will be working on those days. And that's what I got. Thanks for the time. Look forward to the questions. Pass it off to you, Trevor.
Thanks, Jonathan. Good morning. I'm Trevor Partap with our Special Events and Temporary Traffic Control teams at SDOT. We're going to be doing a lot of the normal things that we do every day: monitoring and operating the right-of-way, the roadway network, communicating in real time, collaborating with our partners, as we've always, as you've heard already. And I just want to flip this script a little bit and tell you a little bit more about what you can expect. So I think many people can relate to typical stadium events. So I'm going to highlight some of the differences that we expect to see between those events and the FIFA World Cup matches that we'll be hosting. First off, they're all weekday matches, 4 midday matches starting at either noon or 1 p.m. And we'll have 2 evening matches starting at 5 and 8 p.m. So you can expect to see more travelers on your buses, trains, ferries, and even on the roads during regular commute times, obviously depending on the game time. Secondly, we'll have about an 80-20 split of folks arriving by other modes. That is transit, bikes, scooter, walking, ride shares, and taxis versus private automobiles, which is 20%. For a typical event, it's usually about a 50-50 split. as Mark mentioned earlier. There will be fewer parking options, as both the north lot that's highlighted in green on the screen here, and also Seattle Stadium parking garage will be not available for public parking. So for those that choose to drive, they'll be parking further away than they might normally and walking into the area. There will be a single point of entry at the north end of the stadium for general admission, and that's highlighted by the pink arrow at the top of the screen there. And for a typical stadium event, there are more gates open around the stadium. After the match is over, all the gates and doors will be open. There'll be no pedestrian queuing space within the stadium footprint, so that'll push pedestrian queues north of the stadium between King and Yesler on the city streets. And normally that gate queuing happens in the north lot, highlighted in green again. The stadium gates will open 3 hours prior to kickoff, so that's 1 hour earlier than normal. And ticketed fans can enjoy the activations within the stadium or outside the stadium with the non-ticketed fans. And lastly, I'll touch on the expanded street closures here in a couple slides, so we'll move on to the next slide. All right, so anticipated activity and movements. So within Zone 3, that encompasses the entire city here. So regional travel between Vancouver and Seattle for FIFA matches is expected, and we'll also expect some baseball traffic with the Blue Jays series the weekend of July 3rd to 5th. We also expect that visitors will be staying all over the Puget Sound region and traveling from the west via the ferries and up and down the I-5 and 99 corridors, and then also east on the I-90 corridor and coming into town for the games. Zone 2, the blue box on the map, we can expect to see increased congestion, transit demand, increased pedestrian flows between Seattle Center and the stadium and all the tourist destinations in between those areas. Zone 1 is where the heart of the action will happen, and you can expect to see expanded street closures, restricted access, high pedestrian volumes, and a variety of activations around the stadium. Next slide, please. So I think a lot of you are probably interested in what the street closures are going to look like. And so this slide highlights the street closures in salmon color. They'll be in place on match days from 4 hours prior to kickoff until about 2 to 3 hours after the final whistle or until the crowds clear from the streets and it's safe to reopen. Again, expect a large number of pedestrians in and around the stadium, going to and from transit stations and generally northward into town between the stadium and Seattle Center, and likely Capitol Hill too. Of course, we'll have 2 fan matches to the march, so one for each team. One will start within the street closure area and they'll march to the stadium, and then the other will start from Pier 58 on the waterfront and then march to the stadium as well. And then in terms of traffic diversions, drivers will be detouring around the closed streets, as you see on the map here, and other drivers will know before they go and see messaging on the road at key decision points, helping them to make real-time decisions on how to get where they're going. Next slide, please. And so what does this mean for you? So expect changes on match days. So if you live, work, or operate a business near Seattle Stadium, expect changes in traffic patterns and access on match days, obviously. Plan ahead. We strongly encourage residents and businesses and delivery services to plan ahead and adjust schedules around closure windows. We understand that the impacts are going to be challenging, and we're committed to sharing information both in advance and in real time to help people get where they're going. Stay informed, so check the city's resources for maps, access updates, and other general helpful information. And lastly, enjoy the FIFA experience. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Thank you. Over to you, Lynette.
Great. All right, so we will be taking questions, and so I would recommend if you have them, put them in the Q&A, not in the comment, and I am going to do my best to moderate and cluster on common questions. So my question, and the first question in the queue, tell us more about the bathrooms on the Sound Transit stops. Do we know what stations will have these bathrooms yet? And anything else for those want to know about these bathrooms?
Uh,
Great, yeah.
I can start, and maybe some folks can add here. So Sound Transit, if we're talking specifically about the Throne Labs, the current plan is to have them at International District Station, Mary Moore Station, and South Bellevue. We are still confirming the amount that we will have. We also, I will tell you this, there's a We Can't Wait website and app that we often push for folks to use when we're out doing our ambassadorships. We also have a number of restrooms. Union Station, which is where my office is right now, will be open for public restroom use. And then we've got a number of public restrooms at various stations: Northgate, Linwood, SeaTac, Federal Way, Starlight, Kent Des Moines, Auburn, Sumner, Tacoma. And we have, of course, all of our sounder vehicles have restrooms on board. So a number of options out there, but yeah, Thrones at three of them.
Great. Any other information on restrooms from this panel?
Yeah, I can jump in. Yeah, this is a partnership between King County Metro, Sound Transit, Pierce Transit, and SDOT. So the King County Metro locations are Aurora Village Transit Center and Burien Transit Center will have Throne Labs set up.
Great.
And
Exciting
I
news.
guess I'll mention Pierce Transit since they're not in. Pierce Transit will have one at Lakewood Transit Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be helpful. All right. Maureen talked about use of an app, the Sound Transit app, and there's some questions in the chat about apps. This is going to be the World Cup of apps, actually. You have the existing apps that folks, I'm a WSDOT app user, I'm a Sound Transit app user. We have that world of our transportation users, but there's a bunch more coming. And so one of them is the one that our local organizing committee has created called See and Win, that has some wayfinding and navigation in it, but it is a gamified Pokemon Go-esque thing. They're running some contests right now, so I definitely recommend getting that app, and it's going to have additional information about getting around the city. But there's also going to be something coming up called the Unity Loop that is designed to move people all around the city from the stadium to Seattle Center and zigzagging their way a 4+ mile route. And there will be an app there. And then, of course, FIFA will have an app as well. But what you as businesses can expect is that your visitors, your out of area visitors, are going to be very tech dependent. They're going to have a lot of different apps. You might reference things in the vernacular that locally, but a good frontline training practice would be to train your staff to talk about these apps by the names that the customer is using them on. They're probably going to also use Google Translate in some situations, right? So there's going to be a very tech dependent visitor base. And there'll be all these apps on there. It'd be good as a small business to kind of know the network or the ecosystem of those maps as well. And that's my way of answering one of the questions is there's an enormous amount of apps either launched or in development for this type of work. Visit Seattle has an app. If anybody is developing an app for additional, I don't think anybody in the transportation space is still in development for anything at this point. But the hospitality sector is always has some stuff that's coming out as well. So on the subject of training, giving businesses resources, we saw a lot of good maps coming up, and we know Visit Seattle also created a great community brand that our businesses can use without penalty. Is there a way to take some of these closure graphics that you have and put that a business can use them and start creating some visual resources to post in their business? How tight are you on your IP, I guess, on those map images that you guys are using? Or where can businesses source them to start creating resources for their frontline staff?
So for the street closure maps and things like that, I think the more people that know about it, the better. It is always there's still little tweaks that are always being or continually being made and will be made up until FIFA. We're finding out, different needs are popping up, and we're continually working those into the plan. But as it stands today, the one that I shared is, like I said, the more people that know about it, the better. And if we have more public friendly ones than that one.
Okay.
And maybe Mark,
Yeah,
you can.
I'll just add on to that what Trevor said. I completely agree with what he's saying. I think we're in the final steps working with the city and but city departments on finalizing that with respect to around the stadium, and we have publicly presented that, so it's totally fine that we'll kind of basically follow up, Lynette, I think, with a packet of what we can share, and
Yeah.
that's for you, and people can certainly start to then put that in their own packet that makes sense for them.
And where will the real-time updates be? Would people have to go to the SDOT or the Sound Transit site, or is there going to be a transportation hub of information? Where's the best resource for business owners to click into and identify the latest and greatest?
I'll start off. I think one of the approaches the organizing committee, Seattle FWC 26 does have a sort of transportation landing page, but it is not intended to be real time. That's going to be more to our agency platforms who are versed in doing that, and have regular systems to do that, right? About whatever disruptions they see on their respective system. I'll let them kind of answer that, but that's going to be probably the best source of that information. And before I then hand it off, I will say, I think Marie mentioned the Emergency Operations Center for Sound Transit. Trevor, the city is going to be activating theirs. And so each of the agencies will be coordinating through that in terms of the transportation system writ large. But that will also include, typically include what's called a JIC, a Joint Information Center, which is how communications and media messaging happens should there be any sort of major disruptions. We need to make sure people understand. And that will include FIFA representation as well.
Right. And kind of leaning back on all the apps that I mentioned at the top, is that those will be probably the most real-time updates to changes. Obviously, heads of state can come in, and that disrupts all plans, but those are broadcast widely. And so from, if leaning on the small business playbook we put out, and some advisement for small businesses was, identifying certain types of leads within your workforce that are responsible for staying maybe on top of that, or being the person that checks the updates or checks their phone for any traffic updates is really important. There seems to be an interest in making sure that the transportation options are shared far and wide. Obviously, you all have your platforms for that. We've seen local media cover this. And sometimes, even though we're 76 or 71 days out from our games versus the start of the games, it seems very far away. But then it's going to get very real as traffic intensity picks up, as more visitors get here, and you just notice the city just being a little bit snugger. And so that is the time to really look at those local media coverage pieces and pushing that out to the communities of influence for our small businesses. And again, you'll have these map visuals. You can use the community brand and start to promote that. If you're in a place where you run a newsletter or anything like that, we'd also recommend you putting that content. Don't worry about writing the content. Other people will write it for you. You just get to push it out and be the hero, the amplifier of that. So a couple technical questions. So talking on Sound Transit, there's been a 4-car and a 2-car service across lines, the 1 and 2 lines. Will that structure remain in place, and will there be supplemental service to handle the surge before and after games, Marie?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, on game days, we're going to do an all-day 8-minute headway. So 4 minutes, that'll put us at 4 minutes between Linwood and International District. That's pretty much the best frequency we can do for now. And then as far as consist sizes, 1 line, primarily 4-car trains. The 2 line, we are going to do a mix of 2 and 3-car trains. And we are strategizing on when we bring those 3-car trains in. But as mentioned, we've got the games, but then we've also got our regular commuters, and we've got Mariners games, etc. So we're going to try our best. We will have, in addition to all of that, some gap trains that we'll be able to deploy kind of as needed. So I hope that answered that question.
Yeah. And I think if you guys didn't pick up on it when Mark showed the traffic intensity calendar, there's a little nugget there that you all in the audience will go, oh, really? When I say it, is that the Red Sox, MLB decided to put a Mariners Red Sox game. I'm blaming the Red Sox. I'm not going to blame the Mariners. Decided to put a Mariners Red Sox game on June 19th that night at 7. So we have the US kicking off the Juneteenth game on the 19th at noon. So a lot of excitement, right? And then that night at 7, the Mariners will be beating the Red Sox. So that is going to be, I'm a downtown dweller. It's going to be super fun and exciting, but that is something to be very cognizant of in terms of your mobility, your workforce's mobilities, staffing your businesses that may be impacted, and resourcing your business. It's gonna be busy, intense. I'm framing everything as surge and friction, and it's going to be both of those things. So be alerted to that. That's a last 30, 60 days update. One of the last specific questions on King County Metro. When and where can we find out which King County Metro routes will see increased frequency?
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to list some of the routes right now. And just so you know, we'll have a dedicated World Cup webpage that goes live April 14th. So you don't have to
Okay.
memorize this information. And then from that point on, we'll be kind of in the middle of a very energetic comms know before you go campaign. So you'll be hearing a lot more external information in general. The Metro Match Day shuttle map I shared, I'll track back through a couple of these questions if you don't mind. That's public facing, it's finalized, so feel free to share that out. And we will be sharing that in a more friendly format as well. But as far as the routes, so this gets into kind of the app question as well. I think the trip planners are a really great resource to know where you're going, what route to take, and when it's coming. So it's kind of like combines real-time information and a lot of other useful stuff in one place. So obviously each agency, we have our own in-house trip planner, Sound Transit, King County Metro. There is also Transit app, which I know a lot of people are fans of, and we are partnering on them for some additional innovations ahead of World Cup, including incorporating some other service that wasn't historically incorporated, like the MetroFlex on-demand service. And we, for the first time ever, will be sending data downstream from the service that we're adding, which I'm about to list, but also the Metro Match Day shuttle into those trip planners. So you'll be able to go into Google Maps and punch in Seattle Stadium. And if you're at Seattle Center or somewhere along 3rd Avenue in particular, the Metro Match Day shuttle will show up in that trip planner. We've never been able to do that before, but we've surmounted some technical hurdles and are really excited to bring that out for World Cup. Other routes that we are supporting include Route 40, 101, 150, and Route 70. Those will be supported throughout the entire duration of the tournament. Every day, match days and non-match days. In addition, in a slightly more ad hoc basis, we're also going to be supporting some of the really high ridership, high productivity routes, many of which service the stadium, includes C, D, E rapid ride lines, Route 7, Route 150, and then in partnership with Sound Transit, even with the 2-line being online, we will also continue to support Sound Transit Express service. So whereas before that was scheduled to end at the service change, that will continue on throughout the spring and summer. And then on top of that, we'll be adding extra service on routes 522, 545, and 554, just to make sure we have like really solid coverage throughout the east side to help those folks come in to enjoy the events.
Right. And all of this, there was a question, we do send out the transcript, but we're recognizing that all these folks do have, robust websites and apps with that updated information. Couple things, businesses that I want to make sure people heard. There is a perimeter there around the stadium that is going to prohibit ride shares. So rideshare pickup and drop off will happen outside that perimeter. If you're a business inside that perimeter, that means people can't put in your business as a pickup spot, right? The app won't even let them do it. So, but if you're a business outside that perimeter, be aware you might have increased foot traffic outside your business because you're a place where they can get a ride share. Lime bikes and scooters will have no-go zones, right? They'll have kind of parking lots or well, I don't remember what you were calling them, Mark, but they're going to have places for, there's going to be bike corrals, but there will be no, lime and bike perimeters, lime scooter and bike perimeters as well, correct?
Correct. There'll be designated pinned parking locations for within a certain area of the state.
And the last thing is, we all say Lumen, make sure you retrain your brain for about 6 weeks to say Seattle Stadium, because folks are going to ask about them. And if you send them to Memorial Stadium or some other place when they're at the counter, just remember we have a new name. It's called Seattle Stadium for a certain period of time. So again, your frontline workers are engaging with folks that have a little bit different vocabulary with some of our iconic places in the city. And they're going to be, again, heavily dependent on those phones and making sure that you understand the app ecosystem. There's no reduction in apps. There's only additions at this point. So just make sure that you guys are staying up to date on the ecosystem the best you can. Thanks everybody for staying a few minutes over. Again, we do get the recording out to everybody that registered, and we'll get materials as well. Have a great day. See you next time. Oh, April 15th. Sorry, I'm not reading my script. April 15th, we do have another webinar on economic impact, another playbook about being inclusive and welcoming the world, and some guidance from GSBA as well. See you guys then. Thank you. Bye-bye.